Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our NUIT Tech Talk on calendaring and email tips. I'm Christina Bella with the NUIT Communications team and have with me today's presenter, Kevin Osler. Before we get started today, if you're having any trouble hearing me or Kevin, make sure your volume is adjusted all the way up, whether you're using headphones or speakers. Also, make sure that you're using a wired connection if that's available. It'll just give you the best connection during the presentation today, since we're going to be doing some screen sharing and demos. And then you close any applications running in the background that are connected to the internet, email, any other web browsers you might have open. That will also help with the demos today. If you have a question at any time, you can type it into the Q&A box down here, and we'll answer those throughout the presentation. We'll also give you an opportunity at the very end of the presentation to download the PowerPoint that Kevin's going to go through. We're also recording this, so you can we'll be posting that later today or tomorrow, so you can also watch it if you'd like to review what Kevin goes through. But before we get started, we have one quick poll question we just want to ask everybody, and that is, what do you currently use for your email and calendaring? Outlook 2010, 2013, Outlook for Mac, webmail, OA. If you use something else, or if you're not sure, that's an option as well. And if you're not sure which version of Outlook you use, pretty good bet most people on 2013, but you can select either one of those, and just to give us a sense of who's on what. Okay. Like mostly Windows users, a couple Mac. Okay. Great. All right. Well, with that said, I will hand it over to Kevin.
Hi there. Real quick. There we go. All right. Just real quick, we're going to go over Outlook 2013 a little bit. We're going to go over some calendar delegation things like tips and tricks, best practices, meetings and invitations. And then hopefully if we get to it, because usually we kind of run a little over going over the calendar delegations and meetings invitation, kind of best practices. We'll get some email recommendations for you. Just to start, the Outlook 2013 stuff is now we've actually finally completed our migration to Exchange 2013. Which was about 26,000 mailboxes we migrated in the span of about 2.5, 3 months. Every person is migrated over, org mailbox, rooms, resources, everything is all migrated over at this point. We appreciate everybody's patience in that, but now that that is migrated over, then we can concentrate on other things. So, just a real quick overview of why. Those of you, I noticed there are still some people on Outlook 2010, although the majority of the people are on 2013, which is good. Reasons why you want to be on Outlook 2013 as opposed to 2010, it's better performance and stability with the current version of Exchange that we're running. There's some cool things. I'm actually going to switch over here and share my screen. Share. I'm going to show you my Outlook 2013 real quick. There's a couple.
And I'll just mention real quick, for the screen sharing, there's an option up at the top here if you want to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to view. You just click on the arrows to make it full screen. If you want to ask a question, you can click that again and it'll shrink back down.
Okay. Real quick, there's a little calendar peek down here. If you actually hover over your calendar area in the lower left, it'll actually pull up a little agenda for you. So you don't actually have to switch over to your calendar, and you can actually scroll through your agenda. And as you can see, I'm actually out of the office tomorrow. It's not my agenda, but that's one of the new features in Outlook 2013. One of the other cool features, find a message from Christina.
And Kevin, while you're doing that, can you explain for people who either aren't sure what version they're on or want to switch to 2013 how they can go about doing that?
You would actually go over to the File tab. I'm going to do the slopes. I know it takes a little bit to refresh, but you actually go over to the File tab, and then you would actually, on the Information tab here, where is it? Oh, Office account. Sorry, I was some time too. And then it'll actually pretty much tell you here what product you have, but then you can also hit About Outlook, and it'll tell you the specific version of Outlook down to the detailed number that you're on.
Okay.
And you should always try and have the latest patches and everything for Outlook.
And if they have any questions about that, they can contact their local IT support person. Excuse me, if they have questions about upgrading or what version they're on as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Now this isn't actually an email, but one of the things that I want to show you is because I'm also logged into Link, the university's instant messaging product. At the same time, I'm logged into Outlook. I can actually respond to a message from Christina directly from my Outlook client without having to switch over to the Link/Schedule for Business product. So because I have the two kind of logged in at the same time and tied in together, I can actually just respond to her from the client here and say hello. We can actually see our little chat history here, which I actually have mine set to actually maintain my conversation history, so I can fall back on it. But the other thing you'll notice is because I actually did this from my inbox. Actually, can you send me a test email real quick, Christina?
Okay.
I'm going to just move on quick while she's doing that. There's improved mail tips. I don't know if you know what mail tips are, but if I try and email, let's just say Collaboration Services Group, NUIT Collaboration Services RDL, and I expand it, I'll get everyone listed here, and you'll actually, these little notes that pop up here are actually the mail tips, and in this instance, my boss is out of the office. So it actually notices that, he's out of the office, but it'll also do things like give you other mail tips, like if you're not allowed to send to a certain distribution list or a restricted mailbox, or you're not allowed to book a certain room or something of that nature. These little mail tip things are improved between Exchange 2013 and Outlook 2013. Moving on, Christina actually sent me a message.
It's taken, hold on.
Okay. So while she's doing that, I'm going to open up a new memo here and address it to Christina. And I'm going to say here is the Word document. And I'm just going to copy that. And I'm actually going to try and send this to Christina. And what you'll notice, because I mentioned Word and or document, and there's a few other keywords that it'll key off of.
Oh, attachment as well.
Attachment as well. It'll actually pop up and say, hey, I think maybe you were trying to send an attachment here, but you forgot to attach something.
Yeah.
And it'll remind you. So I can actually choose two options here, like, oh, send it anyway. I was just mentioning those words, I didn't mean to attach something.
Yeah.
Or I can say don't send, and then go back and attach the file and send it anyway.
Yeah. That's a really handy feature. I actually really like that one. And actually, we had a question. Somebody asked why the address box isn't organized by last name. Is that something that can be changed, or is that something?
The address box.
Let me ask for clear. So, Ariana, if you can clarify if you're talking about
Like
when
this,
Kevin showed the. Yeah, let's pull that up.
this address box, like if I'm looking in the global
Mhm.
address book, or if I was in a new memo and just typing Christina Bello.
Yeah, Ariana, if you want to just comment back and let us know exactly which part of the address box you're referring to, we can answer that question better.
All right. And we will answer that.
Yep.
I'm just going to keep going here because, like I said, we usually run out of time. So I got this message from Christina. You'll notice the subject is Hi, Kevin. Well, what I was trying to show earlier is I got this message from her, but she's online, and this isn't necessarily the conversation we need to have by email, so I'm actually going to reply by instant message. What you'll notice when my instant messenger pops up is it actually retains the subject of the email, so that because I actually use Conversation View in my mail client, and this is for your Outlook on Mac users or your Outlook on Windows users, using Conversation View groups things together. So because I'm responding to this email with an instant message, it's actually going to group the instant message and the email together, almost like it was a reply, so that if at some point I want to go back and review this particular interaction that has a subject of Hi Kevin, then I'll see that I actually responded to her email with an instant message. All right. There's also, did we get a clarification on that question yet before I move on?
It's when you try to look somebody up in the two fields. Or, I'm sorry, the address book. But I think they are alphabetical there.
So the one thing that I keep seeing people not doing,
yeah,
by default, for whatever reason, whenever somebody is using Outlook, when they do a search, they're doing name only. The best thing to do, name only, unbeknownst to unless somebody told you this, is going to search the field that's called name, which is somebody's full name that might have a middle initial or a middle name in it. If you actually switch to more columns, it's going to search the first name field, the last name field, the name field, the display name field, and a whole bunch of other fields. Here, I'm going to actually hit the 2 button here. The tip actually was, by default, name only is going to be selected. That name only refers to there's an actual field in a user account that's called name, and that actually has your first name, any middle name or middle initial, and a last name in there. So it's not necessarily accurately going to find someone if they have a middle initial or, something that you don't know about. So the best thing to do always is to use more columns. And once you switch to more columns once, it's going to default there going forward. But it's going to search the first name field, the middle initial, the last name field, the name field, which is a combination of those, and the display name field, which might be a little bit different, and then email address and net ID. So I can actually search for net ID in here as well, and it will find me. Like there's certain people I just remember their net IDs for whatever reason. But the other trick that I wanted to show you, let's actually pick someone. Give me somebody's last, like the first 3 characters of somebody's last name.
Right, Hunter.
Hunter? Yeah. That's somebody that's participating?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I know you can't actually see me click my keys, but so I've typed Hunter in the to field, and I don't regularly email somebody named Hunter, but I can hit the Control key and the K key on my keyboard, and it's going to do an automatic lookup to the global address list, and it's going to pull up every Hunter in the global address list. So who's our Hunter?
Char Hunter.
Char Hunter. So I'm going to go and select Char, and I'm going to say OK, and then it'll add her to the to field.
Great. Cool.
So the Control K will do,
That's handy.
a fuzzy search, like quick lookup, so you don't actually have to hit that to button. You can just start typing in the to field or the CC field or BCC field, hit Control K, and it'll pull up some search results for you.
Cool.
Right away.
Great.
And that's actually been around for previous versions.
Yep. And then somebody else had a really good question. I think you're going to cover this during your presentation about how to maximize the storage space. The comment was they're constantly running out of space and created folders under the personal folder. I think we went through this the last time we did this presentation, just kind of how to maximize storage and make it run a little bit faster.
Well, I mean, with the migration to Exchange 2016, we 2013, sorry. Everybody actually who's a faculty or staff actually got a 16 gig mail file. Okay. So with that said, if you're still running out of space with your 16 gig mail file, we should probably talk offline, but real quick, the best thing that I can actually show you to do, I'm in my inbox right here. I'm actually just going to click on the sort. Hopefully this shows the sort by size as I hover over the size column. If I sort by size, and I actually did, I have a couple examples here of things people sent me. It will actually sort my inbox, or any folder for that matter, by size. The things that are identified as huge or very large or large probably shouldn't be stored in your mail file. Okay. Right? You can actually, I don't even know what this is. So the university spammed me with a 13 meg attachment, which, whatever, but I can actually save this attachment somewhere. It died. So not sure where we kind of had our technical difficulty there or not, but what I did was I clicked on the size column, and you'll see as I hover over it, it says sort by size. Well, it's actually categorized by size, my email in my inbox. And you'll notice I have one thing that, the university actually sent me that's probably too big, is a 13 meg spring 2015 registration attachment. You'll notice it's actually categorized huge. That should give you a little inkling that you probably shouldn't be storing a huge attachment in your mail file. As well as anything labeled very large, you probably shouldn't store that in your mail file either. You can keep the email, but as I was doing, I think when we locked up, I actually went in here. You can actually save the attachment. And I'm saving this to my hard drive. And then I'd actually go up here to Actions and say Edit the Message, which I didn't know if you knew you could do, but I can actually delete. I can actually click Remove Attachment, and it will remove the attachment, and then I can save the message without the attachment, and then I still have that history of communication, but the attachment is saved in a more appropriate place and not space in your mail file. As well as what I would look for is sent items. People don't really think about this too much. Say you send attachments to people. Well, 99% of the time, you're sending something that's also stored on your hard drive or on a shared drive or something.
Yeah.
So do you need that stored in your mail file and on the shared drive? So both of those things are being backed up.
Right.
So your sent file is always a place to go look and sort by size and just try and get rid of those large attachments. And you'd be surprised, normally when we do a mail file analysis for somebody, it's like 2 to 10% of the documents are taking up 80% of the space in somebody's mail file.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really good tip.
Me, for instance, I have like 60,000 things in my mail file, and I'm only using, 4 gig of my mail file out of 16 gig, and I've got a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But you notice in my inbox, I had 2 kind of large things, and this one actually in particular is just a test for myself to see if it makes it through. So, and I'm going to go back to sorting the normal way. All right. Really quick, flipping over the calendar real quick, one of the other new cool things is the weather bar. Now, you might say, why do I need this? But if you travel a lot or you're going to be at a different campus or say you even use your work calendar for kind of personal things, it will actually show you the upcoming weather. Say you're scheduling something, for next week, it'll actually show you the weather, so you can be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have that picnic outside. We need a room inside or something.
Yeah.
So this is one of those other little neat things. Going back to the inbox real quick, I'm going to draft a reply to Christina. And you'll notice I'm actually just using this in the doc view. I can actually pop this out if I want, but I'm going to actually say hello. And then I got distracted by something else. So I'm going to switch back here. You'll notice it automatically saved it as a draft, even though I didn't click any kind of save or anything. But what you'll also notice is if I come back up here, because I'm in conversation view, I can actually see, I don't have to switch over to the drafts folder. I can just arrow back up and see I apparently have 2 drafts, but I can see my draft response to Christina right from the inbox. So I don't have to search, go back to the draft folder and search over there. I can actually see it right in line with the rest of the conversation.
And I'll say, too, I actually really like that feature, and I think we've mentioned this before, because it's really nice if you, previously, you end up with like 10 different drafts of email to people that you forgot you started. My drafts folder ends up huge. I like this because it's just a visual reminder within my inbox of who I've started replies to and who I need to finish replying to.
As well as something I actually use on a regular basis is flags. I know people like to use unread marks sometimes to keep track of what they need to respond to. But I suggest even for a week, try using flags because you actually have the option of right-clicking on that flag and say when you want to respond to it, and then it's going to add a follow-up date to that email.
Nice.
And then when you go over to your task list, you can actually see things that you need to follow up on.
Yeah. Great.
You can also add a reminder so it will actually prompt you to respond to an email as well by right-clicking on the little flag. So.
Yeah, it's a nice little tap on the shoulder, like, hey, don't forget. Yeah.
Yep. All right, on to calendar delegation. Now, I'm just going to flip back to the slide here real quick. And I'm going to say these are recommendations and not requirements. These recommendations are actually, we're giving them for a reason because we see people who kind of don't follow the recommendations, then they have issues, and we say follow these recommendations, and then they don't have issues anymore. So, again, recommendations, if you have some specific situation, we can always work around it, or you design a business process around the technical needs, if you will.
Before you get too much into that, can you
Okay.
explain just who would use calendar delegation, how it's useful for the folks who are on the call?
Yes, so there's a few different scenarios where you would either delegate your account to somebody or be a delegate for someone. The first and most common is a room or resource calendar.
Okay.
We have kind of probably more of those around the university than we do the other example. You have a room that requires approval by someone, and you and or a list of people are the delegates for that room, and you approve either all requests, or another example is all requests that come from outside of your department need to be approved by someone in the department. So that's a good example that I should actually start with of where a list of people is a delegate for a room.
Yeah.
That's where you'd want to have a business process around, Susie is going to be the primary person to accept or decline, but if Susie's out of the office, then Bob is going to be her backup and approve, decline, and then down the list from there.
Got it.
Susie and Bob shouldn't be both processing meetings at the same time, because that's when problems start occurring if multiple people take action on a message at the same time.
Got it.
Make sense?
Yep.
All right. So the other delegate is executives at the university, which we have a lot of, and they have a dedicated assistant that is a delegate of their mailbox. You can set that up in a few different ways, in that all calendar-related items are redirected to the delegate for approval or decline, or they go to both, which we don't actually recommend that both the executive and the admin or the executive assistant process meetings together. There
for
should
the
be,
same reason of the
for the
Bob
same
and
reason,
Susie.
as the Bob and Susie example with the room, you don't want multiple people taking potentially different actions on the same meeting at the same time, because that's when things like disappear. Or when the executive, for instance, deletes the meeting response out of his inbox, that can actually make the meeting that you accepted for them disappear.
Okay.
So we actually recommend that you, in the case of the executives, you should have as few delegates as possible, preferably only one.
Okay.
You can have other people that have calendar permissions or calendar access, but the delegate is kind of a special permission, so you should try and only have one or two of those. Again, we understand the room's a different scenario, but...
Well, and the permissions would allow someone to see the calendar, see what's coming up.
Interact with the calendar even, like create new things,
But it's the delegation is
the delegates,
special.
It's
scenario.
kind of above
Okay.
regular permissions,
Got it.
but not all the way at the top.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Okay.
We actually recommend that owners and delegates should be using the same version of Outlook.
Okay.
If your bosses doesn't want to migrate off of Outlook 2010 and you're on 2013, you should have your IT people talk to your boss and say that for the best performance of the calendar, because multiple people are interacting with that same calendar, you should all be on the same version. And hopefully they don't make you downgrade to the older version. Yeah. Right? If you are the delegate for someone, you should not have your clients set to auto accept meetings. Okay. That's actually a setting in your options on your Outlook client. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll be back in 1 second, folks. Okay. There we go.
All right. So under calendar, there's actually an option. I don't believe I have it checked. Automatically accept or decline meeting requests. And there's a separate little pop-up that says what I want to automatically accept or decline. Another cool thing that actually has been around for a while that not too many people actually know about that I don't think I showed this last time, but I'm going to show you this time. Did you know you can actually show a second time zone in your calendar? For instance, I don't know what Qatar would be, but we talk to them on occasion. So let's do Tripoli, Baghdad. Well, what time zone there right off the top of my head, but I'm going to choose something in the Middle East. Let's choose Abu Dhabi. And then it will actually show me if I'm scheduling a lot of meetings with people in a different time zone. I can actually flip this on and off real quick and show what time it's going to be both here and that other time zone.
Great, yeah, that's really handy. And for travel, I imagine, too. If you're
if you're traveling abroad and you have to, say you're traveling to Qatar and you still need to call in for conference calls here, you can see what, the local time is going to be back here while you're doing whatever in Qatar. So you can actually turn that on and off at will.
Great.
Okay. That not turn off for me. Change time zone. Okay.
And Kevin, I'll just give you a heads up. We're about halfway through, so let's see. I think we're doing pretty good on time.
Do you have a question?
Nope, we're good.
I'm flashing.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Meetings and invitations. Where were we? Can you actually send me a meeting invitation once I start talking?
Yeah.
One of our issues that we kind of run into from time to time is people are, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, what happens if I accept a meeting but somebody else deletes the invitation? That meeting will actually end up getting deleted from whatever calendar it was on. So this is where it starts getting into the confusing area, not only for people, but if somebody has a problem and they want to troubleshoot, then we have to figure out, you ever see those CSI shows when they have all the pictures up on the boards and the strings tying everything together? That's how it is sometimes trying to troubleshoot calendar issues. So that's why we're kind of telling you this. The calendar document and the actual meeting invitation are technically two separate documents that are linked together. So if you delete an invitation, it will actually delete the associated meeting. So that's why you don't want to do that. You want to set up your client to interact appropriately with that meeting invitation after you're done with it.
Got it.
We actually recommend, and again, this is a recommendation, not a requirement, is that you actually take action on the meeting request from your inbox and not from your calendar. What I mean by that is this is my meeting invitation, and you'll see it has a list of actions to take on it. But if I flip over to my calendar, you'll actually notice that I have the meeting request on here, which I can take the same actions on. The problem with that is, or the slight issue that we've seen, and this goes back to delegation, is that if multiple people are running in cache mode and they all take action on a meeting,
Yeah.
then you can have mixed, different, and sometimes disastrous results.
Mm-hmm.
So back to what we recommend is from the actual invite/meeting invitation
Mm-hmm.
is where you take action and accept or decline the meeting and
Mm-hmm.
always send a response.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the system on the back end knows
Mm-hmm.
how to handle things in case something goes wrong.
Okay.
If you haven't sent a response to somebody accepting that meeting, say something, we actually have what's called the calendar repair assistant,
Mm-hmm.
that as long as you've appropriately sent the response, the calendar repair assistant knows that that meeting's supposed to be on your calendar, or if you sent a decline notice, that it's not supposed to be on your calendar.
Right.
So it can actually fix things on the back end.
And that, I think, is a default at this point, that you have to send. There's not an option, I think, with meetings at this point that you can reply and not send a response. I think
If you just click accept, yes, but you can certainly, and I know a lot of people do say, click the down arrow and say do not send a response, because they think they're bothering people if they send a response.
And people don't want the emails and
but those response emails don't take up a lot of space, right? And the system appropriately kind of mushes them all together and marks in the calendar entry that somebody is accepted or declined, and then it on its own trashes the actual email part of it after it's updated the calendar entry. So you kind of have to let the system do its work.
And to be honest, for someone who organizes a lot of meetings, it's helpful to get those responses.
It is.
And it also, that updates the, you can go within a meeting invite that you've proposed and see who's replied and responded and accepted and who's not and declined and all that, which is also helpful.
Yes. If you're someone who goes back and forth between an Outlook client, whether it be on a Mac or Windows, and OA, you check mail from home from OA, we actually recommend that you don't edit a meeting that you accepted or declined in Outlook. You don't try and then manage it from OA.
Okay.
You can just have,
better to wait till the next day.
Better to wait till the next day and then edit it. If it's an emergency. Now, mind you, I'm speaking about meetings here where rooms and resources and other people are invited.
Okay.
We actually recommend that you don't try and edit those from a mobile device either. You should think of your mobile device as kind of even though you can, doesn't mean you should. Your mobile devices should be a view-only version of your calendar, not where you are day-to-day managing your calendar from. Those applications are written on your Android device or your Apple device. Those applications are written by Apple and Google. So they're not going to, if they get something wrong and it screws up your calendar or another person's calendar, which actually has been the case, we don't have any recourse to call Apple and say, oh, why is this broken? They might do something about it, but they don't really care, to be quite honest.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
So
better to use when you're on your phone or tablet or something traveling for business and you just want to view what's going on in your calendar, that's fine.
Yes.
When you want to accept meetings, manage your calendar, do that from your computer, easy enough on a laptop.
Yes.
Got it.
All right.
Great.
You shouldn't make personal notes in a meeting if you're an attendee, because if you save that and updates come in, they'll get overwritten.
Okay. Is that the same issue with...
Or if you're the owner of the meeting and you make notes in it and you send an update to everyone, then your personal notes are going to get sent out to the entire meeting list.
Got it. Okay. And is that the same with attachments on meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually recommend that you do not put attachments in meetings.
Okay.
You can send, like in this instance, Christina sent me a meeting invite, and I have it. There's actually an option here to respond to either Christina Or everyone. No, we locked up again?
Yeah. 1 second. Actually, Kevin, you can keep talking, and
Okay.
we'll just show this one when it.
So you can actually, there's a meeting action to respond to everyone involved in the meeting. So you should send the associated email that's separate from the
actual meeting event on your calendar.
Correct.
Got it.
Are we running out of time here?
We have about, if people need to leave at 11:45, I think we actually booked this one for the full hour until noon. So if people can stay until noon, we've got about 20 minutes left. People need to leave a few minutes early. As I said, we're recording this, and we also have a recording of the event actually on YouTube now if you want to look through that. But we will be posting that later if people need to leave. But if you have time to stick around, we hope you stick around.
Okay. Am I reconnecting here? All right.
And I'll mention just again briefly, again, if you do have any questions, you can type into the Q&A box at the bottom. I saw a couple people have raised hands within Adobe Connect. But if you have a question, just type it in down here and we'll answer those for you. Okay, Kevin, you're good to go.
All right. Share my screen again. All right, back to meeting test. Real quick, it's actually an action here that you can respond to everyone. Or I could actually go to IM and IM them.
Yeah.
All right. Repeating meetings. This is a big one. I'm actually going to go create a new meeting here. People don't, for whatever reason, set an end date to repeating meetings. That is a bad thing. If you go look out 60 years from now, if you haven't set end for a repeating meeting, that repeating meeting, weekly meeting, will still be there 60 years from now. And I don't know about everybody else, but I don't plan on, although I'd like to live forever, I don't plan on necessarily still being here working in 60 years.
So some people have it.
Some people do. So I'm just going to go through this list real quick because I know we're getting super short on time here. You should always schedule recurring meeting end dates. You should always change the organizer if necessary, rather than editing a meeting as an attendee. You should have the original one canceled and then schedule a new one or change the organizer. For one-time changes in a repeating meeting, sometimes easier, we recommend to just cancel that individual instance and then schedule a new meeting. If you, say you're having a problem with a repeating meeting, or you need to get rid of or shorten a meeting length, we actually recommend going in and just changing the end date of a recurring meeting to happen right after either the last instance or the next instance if you want to keep that next one. And then it will end the recurring meeting. You send an update to everyone, and it will clear everyone's calendar. It will clear out the room. And then you can always schedule new sets of meetings. As I mentioned before, refrain from sharing attachments in the meetings. And then we actually recommend that you set the reoccurring meetings based on the length guidelines and avoid copying meetings, because that can cause its own set of issues. I'm just going to flip back here. I'll just show my version of the slide here. If you have a daily meeting, we recommend that you only schedule it out 2 to 4 weeks at a time. Weekly, you should only do 2 months. Bi-weekly, 3 months. If it's a monthly meeting, you can go 6. Quarterly, you should do a year at a time. Annually, you can do those individually. And I'm going to go what I said earlier. This is for meetings where other people and rooms and resources are invited. If you want to do an appointment, which is just you and a reminder for you and no one else is invited, like somebody's birthday or an anniversary or something,
or tasks,
or a task that you need to do once a week,
on your calendar.
Go ahead and put that in for the next 20 years. It's when other people are invited and other people's calendars are affected that you start running into issues. And then, because you have this meeting scheduled for the next 10 years, if there's a problem with it or if it's regularly rescheduled, then you start having issues with that meeting. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that every, if you have a weekly meeting, that every 2 months you have to go in and schedule, them in months, blocks of 2 months. Go in tomorrow and set aside an hour in your calendar and send out in 2 month blocks your meeting for the next year or 2 years.
Yeah.
So long as they're in 2 month blocks.
Got it. So it's not that you have to schedule it. You have to sit down at your desk and schedule it every 2 months. You just can only schedule.
You should only schedule the repeat length for 2 months.
Got it.
So that way, if something gets rescheduled, you limit the possibility of impact on not only issues with your calendar, but other people's calendars and room calendars.
And plus, that makes it a little bit easier if things do change, if you change offices, if a conference room suddenly decides to become an office.
Yes.
If someone leaves, you need to add new people. It just makes it a little bit easier to manage than changing, like you said, a 60-year meeting.
Yes.
Versus 2 months, cancel it and reschedule it.
We've actually had people come to us and say, "Oh, this person left the university a year ago, but her meetings are still on our calendars." Yeah. Well, her mail file's long gone, so we can't actually go into it and cancel it because it's gone. So those 20 people that were invited to that meeting all have to individually go into their calendars and manually go through and delete those meeting entries.
Yeah.
Is there any questions on the recommended reoccurring meeting length guidelines?
We're good for right now.
Okay.
But again, keep type them in if you have questions.
All right, real quick, going to go back here. One other quick calendar tip that I forgot to show last time, actually. I wanted to make sure that I showed it on this instance. I'm going to go to a day calendar and say your boss comes to you and says, "I want to know, let's have a barbecue on a Friday sometime in the next 2 months. Did you know," and I know you can't see my hands here, so I'm going to select next Friday. If I hold down the control key, I can individually pick every Friday on my little mini calendar here, and then it's actually going to show in my calendar view all the Fridays next to each other.
Huh.
You can actually do that with any days of the week. Say somebody gives you a list of days they're available to talk. You can individually, from this little calendar picker up here, I can pick a Tuesday and another Tuesday and a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday in July and look at them all next to each other and see what's the best day.
I'll be removing that one.
Now, the really cool thing is I can also select a room, and I can select my whole entire team. And you'll notice because I have too many people, it's switched views on me. But what I can do now is I can look at, let me go back to just 3 people here. I can actually overlay a couple calendars here and see what the best day for us to meet is out of those days that were picked. Does that make sense to everyone?
That's actually a fantastic. I didn't know that, and that's actually a huge time saver.
So, let's close Dave's calendar. I'm sure he doesn't want everybody looking at it. All right, back to email. Just real quick, your menu items are context sensitive here. Not a lot of people know this, but when I click in the actual search bar, there's actually a search area added to the ribbon where I can actually, if I type Beto, I can actually highlight that and hit from. Then it'll actually only search for messages from somebody named Bello. In this instance, it's just Christina. But if I want to look for Robert, there's multiple different Roberts and a Roberta actually even there too. So it's going to find only messages from, not messages to or messages where Robert is mentioned in the body of the message. But there's other search options like that. I can also then narrow it down even more and say I want to see things from Robert that have an attachment that were sent this week. That is narrowed down to one.
Great.
Right? All right. You'll actually notice over here I don't have any folders underneath my inbox. All my folders are at the same level as the inbox, and even some of them have subfolders. What we recommend is your standard folders that you get when you first get a mail file, your inbox, the outbox, drafts, sent, deleted items. Don't put subfolders underneath those.
Okay.
Make like a personal folders area, and then if you want to do subfolders, do them underneath there. You actually start running into limits, and those limits change with each version of Exchange we migrate to. There was at one point in time a recommendation that you don't have more than 10,000 documents in one of your standard mailbox folders. Okay. The inbox, sent items, things like that. That's gone up to 100,000.
Yeah.
We don't recommend necessarily that you leave 100,000 documents in any of those primary folders because you could start running into issues, and it's actually issues with the index is that maintain what should be in what folder in your mail file, as well as the search indexes start running into problems.
Okay. So, for instance, if you like to organize your email by projects you're working on, don't put them as subfolders in the inbox. Just set up.
Make a projects folder and then have subfolders for each individual project underneath the projects folder.
But outside the inbox.
Outside the inbox.
Got it. Okay, great.
You'll actually notice down here there's search folders. One of which that I don't know if you know this, but now that we've been on this for a while is unified messaging, where your voicemail goes in your inbox. There's actually by default a voicemail search folder. So I can actually go down here and click on voicemail and see all of my voicemails.
Oh, that's handy.
Right? If I want to go through them or delete them. You'll actually notice that these actually take up a little bit of space as well. Not as huge as that other attachment, but nevertheless, they take up a little bit of space. So I can go through and manage my voicemails, or I can see my missed calls all in one view. That's a default search folder, but you can also right-click on search folders and say, if you're always doing a search for messages from Robert, every week you need to go back and for whatever reason and search all the messages from Robert, I can just actually create a new search folder called Robert. And I can actually set some parameters here, save it, and then it will be a new search folder that I can then go and just click on that search folder every time, and it will always return the same or the same search results that I need, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And just a real quick question on the subfolders under the inbox. How is it the process of creating one of those folders the same? How do you create one of those folders?
I mean, there's 6 different ways to do anything here, but I can click on my mail file and go to folder and say new folder.
Okay.
And then,
so it's basically the same as if you were doing something under the inbox. It just put it under the inbox.
Now, mind you, if you have something underneath the inbox, I don't because I moved all mine. You can actually just drag it out.
Okay.
Say I have this OIF folder. I can actually just drag it out and drop it on the actual file. You'll see I'm hovering over my email address here and drop it, and then it will be at the same level as the inbox.
Okay. Oh, that's easy then.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's probably the fastest way to do it. If you have a lot of stuff under your inbox, just drag it and pull it out. Okay. Great.
Advanced searching I kind of went over already. Another thing that people don't know about here, I'm going to send a new mail to Christina Bello and say, I don't like you. Because I'm upset that this meeting keeps crashing, and I'm going to send that out of haste because I'm upset. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, I shouldn't send that. I can actually go into that meeting real quick if Christina hasn't read it, and I can say, recall this message, because delete unread copies of this message, and I could actually replace it with a new message, or I could just remove it completely, because I'm technically the owner of that message until Christina's read it.
Okay.
I can actually recall it and say, I do like it.
We just don't like Adobe right now.
Right? And say send. And then Christina, because she hasn't read that message yet, is going to get the replacement message. Now, normally, that's kind of a funny example, but if you mistype something to someone or to a large group of people, can't guarantee that you're going to get everybody before they read it, but you can always replace it with the correct message that you're sending to a group of people, or remove it completely if you sent it accidentally to, like I accidentally replied to a message yesterday and sent it to the wrong Jennifer. I actually picked the wrong Jennifer out of my autocomplete list. So she actually emailed me back and said, sorry, wrong person, or whatever. If I had noticed, I could have just hit, retract that message. I know I did that kind of fast, but if you go to your sent items and you go into any sent message.
And this isn't something you could do like 2 weeks later.
If somebody hasn't read it, yes, you could do it 2 weeks later, but most likely
better for stuff like you just hit send, realize you put the date for something wrong to a big group of people, stuff like that.
Now, the other thing that a lot of people do is they're like, well, how do I know so-and-so got my message? Okay, wrap it up.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed too much.
And I'll mention again, the PowerPoint that Kevin is going through that kind of hits a lot of these points is...
It'll be online.
Yep.
There's actually a link to some online resources here. I don't know if everybody knows this, but we have a ever-evolving known behaviors and recommendations page. If something quirky's going on your phone or your client, go to known behaviors page, and we might know about it already. You can kind of look through there and see if it's something we know about. If not, you can report it to the help desk at consultant@northwestern.edu, and then we can either look into it or let you know, oh, hey, this is a known behavior, and if we see it enough, then we put a note up on that known behaviors page if it's something happening in our environment. But there's also a lot of tips and tricks and how-tos on the main collaboration page, as well as explaining everything from SharePoint to Link Instant Messenger and what you can do with it, to email, and a lot of the things that we kind of went over here today, tips and tricks and things like that, are up and linked off that main collaboration page.
Great.
So,
okay. All right, with that, I will...
Thanks for everybody who's stuck around till the end with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I have a couple quick poll questions just to get your feedback on the event today, and then I'll give you where you can download the PowerPoint that Kevin went through. So the first question we just want to know is if you learned something new during today's event. And I always love these because I always learn something new. The comparing of dates actually is going to be useful for something I'm setting up next week. So that'll be really handy. So good. It looks like pretty much everybody learned something new, which is always nice to see. Great. Okay, and we'll move on to the second question here. Is if you plan to apply any of the information you learned at today's event. So we went through a lot of different tips and tricks for email, calendaring, a couple of IM things. If you have a question about how to apply anything we went through, I know that, again, there was a lot of information that can apply in a lot of different ways. Give us a call, send us an email. We are always happy to help you figure out how to kind of use this information to make your life a little bit easier. Great, looks like everybody has something they plan to use. And our last question is, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very satisfied, how would you rate today's event, minus the hiccups with the screen sharing? Because that would be a call to David later. But again, we always hope you're satisfied. If you have any feedback, anything else we could cover in these, anything else we can do to improve these events for you, we know this is an investment of your time, and we just want to make sure they're useful and that you're getting a lot out of them. Great, looks like everybody's quite happy today. I think it's the fun. All right, and our last thing, I'm just going to show you where you can download the PowerPoint here. So if you click on this file, click Download Files right here, and it should open up in a web browser window for you.
Then you should have the option to save it.
Yes,
to your
yep,
machine.
it should open up there for you. And with that, I will say thank you, Kevin, and thank you all again for joining us today.
Thank you.